Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com. And I'm here with a old client, alumni of the program, who has got an extraordinary record of success. I'll tell you all that you can see the website for typical results, that his are beyond typical. We have very good results, but his are beyond typical. Without any further ado, Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Could you give people a 30-second synopsis of your previous life with food and then what happened as you got involved with our work?
So today is the third anniversary of my last binge. So actually 3 years. And that is approximately tied for the record in my life. I remember my third birthday party and the ice cream cake binging. So I'm just going to call it a new record, or as of today, tomorrow, don't really care. For about 40 years, I had an eating disorder and it was getting worse and worse. I managed to get myself in pretty good physical health where I could go 4 or 5 days of restrict and then 1 or 2 days of feeling like I'm out of control while binging. Travel was worse, social situations, all of the usual things that I think everyone else goes through. And then after a work trip where I binged and then would restrict the next morning, okay, I'm not going to eat tomorrow. I'm going to make up for it. And then at maybe 2 p.m., all of a sudden the floodgates open and I just start stuffing food into my mouth. And then the next morning was doing the usual Google search while feeling sick and recovering and all that. Found the program, found you, found your book. And it looked to me like, okay, finally have something different that speaks to me. I was quickly, within a couple weeks, doing better, still nowhere near perfect, nowhere near where I am now, but doing better and realizing, okay, this is a path. And then once I started the intensive program itself, actually, the last binge was the day before that started.
Wow. Just really quickly, what was it about the program that worked for you? Do you want to share the food rules that you came to, or something about the coaching or the refutations, or what worked?
I think the sense of empowerment, the you can do this, you are capable of doing this. Obviously, I was able to go some time without binging, and I was able to fight it off at some point. So tapping into my successes mattered and saying, see, you actually have a record of some success and you can build off of that. That kind of showed me this is going to work. And the concept of the separation between your positive and negative impulses, that made a lot of sense to me. The program itself, I thought, was wonderful. The coaching was amazing. There's so much of it. It's personalized. It's helpful. I think I built my rules and my program differently from everyone else or from most others, and differently from what would work for most others. We just kind of ran with that.
How so? What was different?
So I count calories, which I think is a good idea for some people, including me, and a bad idea for most people. But I had been doing it for 20 something years. So it's kind of an automatic, natural thing to me. I didn't want to just suddenly stop doing that or say, well, this food's off limit, that food's on, although I did that in addition. I just kind of built something around it. And every time I would build something, I would stick with it for at least a week, really at least 2 weeks to see, is this working? And then there was always something about it that helped a little bit, or almost always something about it that didn't help a little bit. And then we'd take that and learn from there.
You looked at it like a trial and error learning process, just like any other sport you might learn or any other game you might play, rather than interpreting the mistakes that you made as a signal that you were powerless or helpless or that this was hopeless.
I think that was one of the great things about this was you're not powerless. It isn't hopeless. You're a child learning to walk. Don't take that as an insulting way, take that as a good way. Or you're an adult learning a new language. If you see a child learning to walk and they fall down when they're a year and a half old, you don't say, "Oh, walking's not for this one." And then permanently this person won't be able to walk. And when you're learning a second or third language, you're going to screw up, use the wrong word. I still do that in English sometimes, right? And you don't say, "Oh, well, this one's not going to learn French. Sorry, it's just too hard." I mean, really, if the first time you go to class and you get something wrong on a test, if you get a 98 on a test and you say, "Oh, yeah, I guess I'm not good at whatever," that makes no sense. And so figuring that out with this, that my prior mistakes are data. I'm not defective. I'm a person who makes mistakes occasionally and is making less today than I did yesterday and still will make some tomorrow. That confidence that I got, I actually didn't realize that I wasn't defective with regard to food until a little less than 3 years ago. And I remember that revelation. And I actually still have the email I sent to the coach about that.
One of the things, Matt, that really stuck with me from the last time you and I talked, and I've been repeating this mantra for other people. I hope you're not going to be upset with me for that. You said that what you learned was to be proud of your progress rather than ashamed of your mistakes. And I thought that just so thoroughly encapsulated the philosophy that I'm trying to promote. Because I find that when people get overwhelmed by binge eating, they're succumbing to shame and they're succumbing to a sense of fear and panic and falling in love with this idea that they're defective and it's hopeless. So every mistake becomes more evidence that they're incapable of doing this. And every mistake becomes something that adds to the panic and fuels the snowball going downhill. Whereas if you could just be proud of your progress rather than ashamed of your mistakes, and you could focus on those little elements of success, which are very small to start, like you ate the whole pizza, but you didn't eat the box. If you can just focus on that, and I'm only half kidding, and, allow that to grow by being proud of your progress and not ashamed of your mistakes, that's actually what happens. It makes logical sense, right? If you're aiming at an archery target and you miss, and then you say, well, I was an inch closer to the bullseye than I was last time. How come, and what do I do to do even better? And what was I doing wrong that I missed by that level? And what can I do better? It just makes sense that we're human learning machines. That's what we're designed for, and we get better. But so many people succumb to the fear and the shame and the sense of powerlessness. Be proud of your progress, not ashamed of your mistakes, was just the perfect encapsulation of the philosophy that I've been trying to promote. So thank you for that.
I think it's wonderful. I think being proud of how many times I got back up, not ashamed of how many times I got knocked down. I don't know if some people who are earlier in the process are looking at me and think, "Oh, I could never do that." How many times do we have a conversation where I said, if I make no further progress, I'm already thrilled with the program, thrilled with what we've done, and have zero complaints, beyond thrilled. But there's this one little thing. If we could deal with it, I would like to. But again, no further progress, no problem. And then we tackled that.
What was that thing? Do you remember?
Oh, I think this happened like 5 times. I mean, I remember one specific one was when at the end of the day, I was like done eating, but because I count calories and for my purposes, spinach has and carrots have no calories, I estimate to the nearest hundred and I'm pretty calm at this point. So I would still like eat a salad at night. I was under control, everything's fine, and this is a wonderful life compared to where I had been, but I had just a little bit of anxiety with that. And so we worked through how to deal with that. I don't remember how many years ago and when that happened, but I remember that one. I don't remember the others. There have just been several times where I didn't aim high enough. But I also think that on day one, if you're trying to learn a new language, on day one, you shouldn't expect to be completely fluent on day two. You should expect a couple knockdowns on the way. There's a balance there. There's a way to see getting knocked down as an opportunity and to be proud of getting back up. But there's also a way to keep raising the bar, keep looking up, be happy about your progress, but also say, well, now what else can I apply this to, or what else can I do?
Life is an adventure of growth, right? When you're constantly growth focused and you're continuing to live, and when you let go of that focus, then you start to die. Maybe that's a little dramatic, but
No, but I,
that's,
I think you're either expanding or contracting.
yeah.
In the last couple of years, I have used this. And by the way, for those of you listening, there was a time when I would be in a situation where I would kind of mid binge and I would just stop and say, can I win the next 2 minutes? I don't care about anything beyond the next 2 minutes. In fact, that doesn't even exist. All that exists is the next 2 minutes, and I'm going to win it. And sometimes I would win, and sometimes I would lose. But sometimes I would win the 2 minutes, and then that would inspire me, and I would win the day, and I felt great. And sometimes I really only made it 2 minutes, and I had to remember that that still was a win. And now I'm at 3 years, which is just amazing. And also at the same time, kind of not a big deal because this is just my routine. But I've used what I've learned to tackle other problems and to just take on other challenges and to try to do so with a lot less fear, understanding that, yeah, I'm going to get some knockdowns along the way, and that's going to be an opportunity to get back up. And so be it. I've just gotten a lot calmer with what would seem like failures, but are really just part of growth. And that's been wonderful for me and also inspiring for my friends.
What kind of other problems have you used this to tackle?
A couple of things like I wanted to learn new things, take classes in other areas. I actually, by the way, did take an archery class, which was kind of fun. And I was just shocked that hitting not the bullseye, but the actual thing that the bullseye is painted on when it's pretty close actually wasn't that hard, and the coaches were really good. It was really fun to be able to do that. And so to be able to take on new things without fear of failure, to be able to just go out there and say, hey, I want to go play soccer. I don't care if I'm going to suck at it. Let's go do that. That's that's kind of fun. I've restarted teaching. So I taught a health law class actually a few times and I'm still doing that, knowing that the first time I do this, I'm probably going to stink at it, but I'll get better and that's going to be okay.
I guess what you're talking about is that you've used your ability to shift away from shame of failure and to focus on progress and pride of progress. You've used that to transform your life in many different ways.
Absolutely. There's an expression like, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I don't know how much that makes sense because if I thought I could fly, I'd try to fly. I don't know how much that means. If you weren't afraid of failing, because failing just kind of isn't a big deal anymore, failing is temporary. I just kind of add the word yet. So I'm not good at speaking Japanese yet, which is fine. I will never be great at reading Japanese, uh, but I'll be all right at speaking it at some point, and I'll be better than I am today. And so that's wonderful. That's kind of the knock on benefit from this.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Is there anything else that has evolved for you getting to 3 years without a binge? It sounds like you did this once before. What's different about it this time?
Well, the first time was just the first 3 years of my life. So,
Oh, I
yeah,
see. You weren't responsible for feeding yourself then.
yeah, and some of that's because I don't remember, so who knows what happened before.
Okay.
A lot of what I've been able to do is travel. Travel is very difficult if you're afraid of binging. You're afraid of travel. There's a lot of what's going to happen, what situation will I be in? They're going to have a foreign thing. There's all these temptations and things.
You won't
Eh,
have your food inventory with you. You'll be hungry.
Right.
There'll be a lot of social pressure. You'll be exposed to signs and smells and sights and sounds that are very tempting. Yeah, go ahead.
And in the past, I don't want to say ruined, but I had made travel unpleasant with binging because you try something new that's wonderful. And then you eat so much of it that you don't sleep and you've got the sweats all night. And then how's life the next day, even that night, even while you're doing it, of course. And then the guilt and the feelings over it. Having no fear of that, which took me a while, that's been maybe about 2 years now that I've just had no fear because I knew, oh no, I've got this. So I've been Europe, Asia, South America, Central America, lots and lots of North America, Canada, places in the US, UK, which sort of considers itself Europe and sort of doesn't. And I've been fine. I've been on group trips. It is kind of annoying to me that sometimes like the dinners on a group trip can be 3 hours. And I know it's just because they're ordering it for the group, but I would just rather eat my food and then go explore Istanbul or wherever. That's where I was for one of them. But it's fine. When I'm confident, occasionally somebody will ask me something or note that I'm eating different things from them or I'm done or something. That's quite rare, but occasionally it happens. I've learned to deal with that. And then also, events, conferences, parties. I was at a board game all day thing last weekend, the weekend before, and there was all sorts of food, and there's 30 people in the house. And I remember a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when I went to one of those types of events and I was binging, called time out, went in the bathroom, was like, okay, looked at myself in the mirror. Can I win the next 2 minutes? I won the next 2 minutes and then lost after that and was eating like crazy, sweating, went home, ruined the night. And so to be able to go to that thing a few Saturdays ago and completely relaxed, and there was a kitchen full of all sorts of stuff, and I had the stuff I was supposed to have, no more, no less. And I needed to remind myself to stop and just enjoy it, as opposed to doing my routine, which is eating what I'm supposed to eat and then having that just not be a major part of my life. To just kind of stop and remember where I used to be and how special it is where I am now, and just kind of smile for a minute and then get back onto my normal life. That's that balance between where I was and the fact that it's kind of routine now.
Yeah, terrific. What do you say in social situations if people notice that you're eating differently?
I usually start with, oh, I like to do my own thing and I don't like to talk about it. Would that be okay? Kind of the asking for permission concept.
Oh, I love it.
That seems to work well. If there's anything more, sometimes I'll say, oh, I've been going through something that I don't like to talk about right now, or I'm not ready to talk about right now, but I'd appreciate if I could count on you as a supporter. Would that be okay? Because usually people want to help, and sometimes they think that like not offering you food is rude, or if I brought my own thing and I'm eating it, or if there's all this stuff and I really kind of am just eating an apple or actually just not eating, that maybe it's because I don't like it. Almost everybody's trying to be nice and trying to be helpful. So if you give them a way to help, that works. You can make it so that we don't have to engage in a long conversation. If people keep pushing, or like I was at a lunch with my mom and her friend, and I ordered a salad without dressing because that's what I wanted. And she was commenting about me not getting dressing and her getting dressing. And I really just didn't have the energy to care about her thoughts about it. But she's kind of kept commenting. And so I first just said, oh, I like to do my own thing and I don't like to talk about it. Would that be okay? And that seemed to work, but then she commented on her dressing, and I probably should have just counted the number of times she blinked before she stopped and just ignored it. I did at one point say, this seems important to you. Then I paused and let her just kind of reflect on that, and that ended it. So that was pretty good.
Those are very specific and helpful tips. I love it. It's very consistent with everything I know about group psychology and social pressure. I love it, Matt.
What I choose to eat isn't open for debate within myself, let alone with anyone else. And so once I developed that confidence that within myself it's not open for debate, I walk different, I talk different, and I'm fine.
Beautiful. And most people are a lot less concerned about what you're eating than people think that they are. We spend all these years thinking we're going to be a social pariah and they're never going to accept us. And they don't entirely know how to interact with you and how can they love you if you're not eating what they're eating. And when you give them ways to do that and you tend to their needs like that, then all that pressure goes away.
Yeah, most people don't notice, or if they do, I mean, how often do I notice what someone else is wearing? Oh, you're wearing a red shirt and you wore a green shirt yesterday. Most people don't have the energy to pay that much attention. And then if they do, it's because they care. And so if I thank them for caring and give them a productive way to do it, there's no problem. I've really only had a couple people who have been kind of nasty, and those people are nasty people.
Yeah.
And well, you want to avoid nasty people.
Yeah. Right. You don't really want them to be your friend anyway, right? You're not
Right.
right.
And that's okay. And I don't need to convince them that I'm right. And there's no doing that anyway. And I don't need to debate with them or no, it's okay. And I really do just want to do my own thing. And I'm not hurting anyone except maybe if apples have a soul or something. Um, I'm I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not doing anything. It's just this is kind of what I like to do, and I'm pretty sturdy. I do occasionally get questions about, and I think people are well intentioned and reasonable, and I answer them honestly about protein things.
Because you're a vegan. No, because you're a vegan, sometimes people get concerned about where you're going to get your protein and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes they're genuinely concerned about my health, and sometimes they're actually just kind of curious, like muscle building, strength training tips or athleticism guidance. I'm happy to provide the guidance and to help. I do take them as having good intentions because that's right almost all, if not all the time. And so I think that's fine. And there was a time when I was less confident. There was a time when I was fighting through this. There was a time when I would lose a lot. Then there was a time where I was winning a lot, but I was very conscious and fighting to win, or, okay, these are my rules. I have to go through this. And so I really didn't want any extra pressure. I was worried that I might succumb to the conversation, the pressure. And so those around me who I surround myself with did a really good job of supporting me, and I appreciate it. And at this point, I have no fears or concerns, so it's different. But I'm happy to be supportive of those around me. I'm happy to help them figure out what their goals are and then figure out how they can aim higher and get there.
Is there anything else that I should have asked you about the incredible journey from feeling, tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think I'm initially utterly convinced that you were defective and powerless to do anything about the binging behavior, to feeling not only confident and secure, but like kind of relegating it to a lower position in your life and focusing on your life more and looking at other problems. Is there anything else you can tell us about that journey and what you want people to know? I still every day talk to people who feel so desperate and so frightened and so powerless over food. What might you want them to know in order to walk the path that you've walked?
I think just that I'm not, I hope my mom doesn't listen to this. I'm not special. Just that part I don't want her to listen to. I'm special in my own way and wonderful and so on. But the thing that I did was really just 100% with every fiber of my being follow the map that the program provides. So I don't get outworked as a person, and it's good and bad because I wasn't sure what to do, but I was doing it with all my might. And so I would have new thoughts about, okay, what if I just do this? What if I just do that? And then, okay, well, I'll just relegate binging to this part, or I'll just restrict or something. So once I just said 100% I'm diving into this, I'm going to trust that this is going to work. I spoke with people and the forum, the online forums and so on, and the coaches, and does this really work? What's going on? Yes, it really does. And one of the things that my master coach had told me was you do need to be in. You do need to be all in. So on these assignments, you really need to do them. Don't take shortcuts, don't cut corners. And so once I really did that, I just said, this is the map and I'm going to follow it. I felt comfortable. That was the answer. And so I think that somebody out there struggling, saying, I'm not sure what the answer is, I don't know what to do, what I would say is do it 100% for a month and see what happens, but 100%. No doubt, no fear, just go with it. That will be life changing. It was for me.
This is really terrific. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, I'm so thrilled that I did this. I'm just anything you need because this made this huge, profound difference in my life.
Thanks, man.
So happy to help others find it, and use it wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.